Did you know that by the time you hit your 50s or 60s, you could be setting yourself up for a heart attack or stroke without even realizing it? No, I'm not talking about the usual culprits like cholesterol or lack of exercise. I'm talking about something that starts much earlier. Your arteries are becoming stiff and calcified, even in your 20s. But what if I told you there's a little known solution, a nutrient that can prevent all of this? So hit that like button and let's dive in. Let's talk about the numbers for a second because they're pretty mind-blowing. In a groundbreaking study called the EPIC study, researchers found that for every small 10 microgram increase of a certain nutrient in your diet, your risk of cardiovascular disease drops by an incredible 9%. Yes, just 10 micrograms can slash your risk by almost 10%. Now, imagine you're consuming 40 micrograms. That's nearly a 50% reduction in cardiovascular risk. Think about it cutting your risk in half just by adding this one thing to your daily intake. Can you guess what that is? We're getting closer, but stay with me. Let's take a closer look at what's really going on here. You've probably heard all about how important calcium is for strong bones, right? From the time we're kids, we're constantly told to drink milk, eat leafy greens, and load up on calcium-rich foods to keep our skeletons healthy. But here's what we're not often told. When calcium doesn't find its way into your bones, it can cause a serious problem elsewhere inside your arteries. Now, picture this. Your heart is a powerful, life-sustaining pump, tirelessly working to send oxygen-rich blood to every corner of your body. But what happens if your blood vessels, the very highways that transport this blood, start to lose their flexibility? Imagine a garden hose that's been left out in the sun for too long. Over time, it becomes dry, stiff, and starts cracking. This is what can happen inside your body when calcium starts depositing in the walls of your arteries, turning them into rigid, calcified tubes. This process is called vascular calcification, and it's more common than you think. When your arteries harden like this, they lose their ability to stretch and contract as they should. Think about what that means for your heart. It now has to work much harder to push blood through these stiff, unyielding vessels. This added strain on your heart increases your risk of cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks, strokes, and high blood pressure. The scary part is, most people don't even know this is happening until it's too late. You won't feel the calcium building up in your arteries. There are no obvious symptoms in the early stages. But behind the scenes, your body is struggling to keep up, and over time, the damage can be severe. Here's the twist though, you don't have to let this happen. There's a natural process in your body that can prevent calcium from settling in your arteries, but it's often overlooked. And no, it's not about cutting calcium out of your diet. Calcium is still crucial for your bones. The key lies in something else, something that can direct that calcium where it belongs and keep it out of your arteries, and we'll get to that soon. Here's another fascinating piece of the puzzle. In 2009, a study published in Atherosclerosis made an astonishing discovery. People who had the lowest levels of this special nutrient had the highest rates of coronary calcification. In contrast, those with the highest levels had the least amount of calcified arteries. Less calcium in your arteries means more elasticity and a much lower risk of a heart attack or stroke. But that's not all. This nutrient also helps improve your bone health, ensuring that calcium gets to where it belongs. I'll reveal what it is in just a moment. Here's another fascinating discovery you might not expect. Recent studies have found that people with higher levels of this key nutrient experience not only better cardiovascular health, but also significantly lower incidences of certain cancers, most notably prostate cancer. This is groundbreaking because prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers among men, and finding a nutrient that can potentially reduce the risk of such a major disease opens up a whole new frontier in preventative health. But that's not all. This nutrient isn't just working wonders for cancer prevention, it's also changing the game for individuals suffering from kidney disease. For people with kidney problems, managing calcium is an uphill battle. You see, when your kidneys are compromised, they lose the ability to filter and regulate minerals properly, and calcium is one of the key minerals that starts to go haywire. Instead of going to your bones where it should, calcium begins to deposit in soft tissues like your arteries, which leads to severe calcification. Now, why is this so dangerous? Well, calcification in arteries, especially in critical areas like the aorta or coronary arteries, essentially turns them into hard, narrow pathways that your heart has to force blood through. It's like trying to drive through a highway filled with blockages and construction. It slows down traffic, causes bottlenecks, and in the case of your body, drastically increases your risk of heart attack or stroke. For kidney patients, this is a harsh reality that often leads to cardiovascular diseases becoming one of their primary concerns. In fact, many kidney patients don't just suffer from kidney failure. They develop life-threatening heart conditions because of this mismanagement of calcium. But here's the incredible part. When this nutrient is introduced into their system, it acts like a traffic cop, directing calcium back to where it belongs, the bones. Think of it like a GPS system for calcium. It prevents calcium from wandering into dangerous areas like the arteries, soft tissues, or even organs, and instead ensures it's stored in the bones, keeping them strong and dense. But this goes even further. The studies surrounding K2 also suggest its role in preventing other types of cancer, not just prostate cancer. Researchers are beginning to explore how this vitamin might influence the development of cancers in other tissues as well, suggesting that it plays a broader role in cellular health than we previously understood. This is particularly exciting for those looking to take preventative measures against cancers that may run in their family, or are concerned about their overall long-term health. But here's the kicker: it doesn't stop with just your bones, arteries, or even cancer prevention. This nutrient is also a major player in keeping your blood pressure under control, which is something millions of people struggle with every day. If you've ever been told your blood pressure is creeping up, or if you're already managing hypertension, listen closely. This nutrient could be your secret weapon. Let's break it down. Blood pressure has two numbers, and the one we're focusing on here is your systolic blood pressure, the top number. It's the pressure in your arteries when your heart is contracting, working hard to pump blood out to the rest of your body. Now imagine your arteries are stiff, thanks to calcification. Rigid vessels don't stretch easily, so your heart has to exert more effort to push blood through these hardened tubes. This extra effort raises your systolic blood pressure. Higher systolic pressure means your heart is under more strain, and over time, that can lead to serious issues like congestive heart failure, where your heart becomes too weak to effectively pump blood. And if that's not enough, higher systolic blood pressure is also linked to an increased risk of stroke and kidney damage, making it a critical number to keep in check. But when you've got this nutrient doing its job, your arteries remain elastic, and your systolic blood pressure stays lower. This reduces the strain on your heart and helps prevent long-term damage, including congestive heart failure. Think of it like oiling a machine. When the parts are well lubricated, the engine runs smoothly. But if those parts stiffen or rust, the engine has to work harder, and eventually, it might break down. Your heart is no different. By keeping your arteries soft and flexible, this nutrient helps your heart pump more efficiently, reducing the risk of wear and tear that could lead to bigger problems later on. And what about diastolic pressure, you ask? The bottom number of your blood pressure reading is equally important. This nutrient helps maintain a healthy diastolic pressure by keeping your arteries flexible enough to recoil between heartbeats. This recoil ensures proper coronary blood flow, especially during the resting phase of the heartbeat. When arteries lose their elasticity, diastolic pressure drops, reducing blood flow to your heart, a situation you definitely want to avoid. Now, let's dive into something really fascinating: how this key nutrient interacts with other important vitamins in your body. You've probably heard a lot about vitamin D and how crucial it is for absorbing calcium. That's vitamin D's main job, making sure that when you consume calcium, it actually gets absorbed into your bloodstream. But here's the part that often gets overlooked. While vitamin D is great at getting calcium into your body, it doesn't have the ability to decide where that calcium should go. So while vitamin D is essential, it's only one piece of the puzzle. It's like having a really strong foundation, but no blueprint to follow. That's where this other nutrient steps in. It's the blueprint that directs calcium exactly where it needs to go, ensuring everything stays in balance. Let's say you're getting enough vitamin D, and your body is absorbing calcium efficiently. That's great! But without this crucial nutrient, there's no way to make sure that calcium ends up strengthening your bones rather than hardening your arteries. Think of it like a construction project. You can have all the best building materials like cement and steel, but without the right instructions, you might end up building a wall in the wrong place, or worse, a blockage. And in this case, the blockage could be inside your arteries. Vitamin D ensures that calcium is absorbed, but this nutrient directs that calcium to its rightful place, your bones, helping them become denser and stronger. It's like having a GPS system that tells calcium, no, don't go into the arteries, head straight to the bones. You might be asking yourself, why are so many of us deficient in this nutrient? One reason is that modern diets lack the fermented foods that naturally produce it. Another factor is the declining quality of our meat and egg supply. When animals aren't fed their natural diet of greens, their bodies don't produce enough quantity, and neither do ours when we consume them. Industrial farming practices have stripped away this crucial nutrient from our food chain, leaving many of us unknowingly deficient. You're probably thinking, okay, this sounds incredible, but what is this miracle nutrient and how do I get it? Well, here's where it gets interesting. This nutrient comes from some pretty unlikely sources, foods that many of us don't eat nearly enough of. Fermented foods like natto, a type of fermented soybean popular in Japan, are rich in this nutrient. Hard cheeses like Gouda, brie, kefir, or sauerkraut also pack a powerful punch. And while these foods might not be on your daily menu, they could hold the key to keeping your heart and bones healthy. But what if you can't stomach fermented foods? Don't worry, you've still got options. This nutrient can also be found in farm-raised eggs and meats, but only if the animals were raised the old-fashioned way, eating natural green diets instead of processed grains. Otherwise, you might not be getting enough of this crucial nutrient. And if you're already dealing with artery calcification or bone problems, supplements of this nutrient can help turn things around. Now, I know you're on the edge of your seat, so here it is. The nutrient that's been the unsung hero of heart and bone health all along is none other than vitamin K2. Specifically, the form called MK7, which is found in fermented foods. It not only keeps calcium out of your arteries, but also directs it into your bones, where it belongs. So now that you know the power of vitamin K2, what are you going to do about it? Let me know in the comments if you've ever tried fermented foods like natto or if you're a fan of Gouda cheese.